This video shows Ermelinda Palomo, who was identified by police as the mastermind behind the plan that resulted in the murder of 2 adults, 2 children, and 3 dogs. According to investigations, Ermelinda concocted a web of deceit and manipulation with the intention of ending the romantic relationship between her partner and one of the victims. A toxic relationship, marked by jealousy and manipulation, dragged Nathaniel Huey to commit a devastating crime. Subjected to a web of lies and paranoia, his vulnerable mind led him to a point of no return. What seemed like a normal life turned into a spiral of violence, ending the lives of his lover and his family in an unexpected and brutal way. On September 18, 2023, Romeoville police began investigating a case that would leave the community shocked. Alberto Rolon, 32, Zoraida Bartolomei, 38, and their children, 9-year-old Adriel and 7-year-old Diego, all shot to death along with the family's dogs, were found dead in their home. Shot 20 times in all in the early morning hours of September 17, victims of a brutal massacre. It was a call for a welfare check later that night that led officers to the family's home on the 500 block of Concord Avenue. That's when investigators approached the home, and officers saw through the window overturned furniture, several dead dogs, and a table on the floor. At first, investigators could not believe their eyes that this was not a suicide or a robbery, as in many other similar cases. It was a meticulously planned murder, something that became clearer as police began to unravel the details. It was then, according to investigators, that they made the grim discovery of a large crime scene allegedly at the hands of Nathaniel Huey Jr. of Streamwood. According to police, Huey Jr. shot the entire family with a 9mm handgun, including Bartolomei, a co-worker with whom he was accused of having an affair. Investigators indicated that Rolon and Huey Jr.'s fiancée, Ermelinda Palomo, was aware of the alleged affair involving their partners. According to police, it was around 3:40 a.m. in the morning when Huey Jr. entered the family's home and carried out the violent murders that spanned several rooms. He then began spray painting a message on the walls, detailed in text messages to who he believed to be a cartel member, to make it look like the crime was committed by children committing a senseless crime. When investigators began tracing Nathaniel Huey Jr.'s ties to Ermelinda Palomo, his girlfriend, what began as a seemingly normal relationship turned into an emotional nightmare. Ermelinda, blinded by jealousy, used her influence over Nathaniel to manipulate him in a cruel and calculated way that is hard to imagine. Huey Jr., according to investigators, told what he believed to be a cartel member that he would force Palomo to drive, which evidence confirms occurred. Even after the murders, Huey Jr. continued to communicate with this alleged cartel member to discuss the crime, unaware that he was, in fact, interacting with his fiancée. She led him to believe that his life was in danger from an alleged drug cartel that had put a price on his head. But not only that, Ermelinda insisted that, to save his life, he must eliminate Zoraida and her family. Using false identities and a web of lies, Ermelinda took advantage of Nathaniel's insecurities. The woman managed to convince him that the only way to survive this threat was to murder the entire family, which triggered the tragedy. Nathaniel, caught in a web of manipulation, never questioned what his girlfriend was telling him. He was so convinced that his life was at stake that he agreed, without hesitation, to carry out the horror he had been ordered to do. After committing the crime, Nathaniel and Ermelinda fled Illinois, disappearing into the darkness. Their escape, however, was not as perfect as they thought. The killer's tracks were followed all the way to Oklahoma, where the police managed to track them down. Tension reached its peak when a confrontation with local authorities ensued. Nathaniel, trapped and with no escape, was on the verge of total despair. During the confrontation, something that seemed almost inevitable happened. Nathaniel killed Ermelinda. The impact of this action was devastating, not only because it ended Ermelinda's life, but because Nathaniel, who was already emotionally broken by what he had done, made the decision to commit suicide. In a moment of total desperation, he attempted to take his own life, but to everyone's surprise, he survived. An outcome that seemed like something out of a horror movie, but which materialized in reality. This dramatic twist left a number of questions unanswered. What is clear is that the weight of guilt and despair drove him to a point of no return. The murder, the escape, and then the death of Hermelinda set up an uncontrollable chain of events that left everyone wondering how a relationship could lead to such destruction. The tragedy of a broken life that ended in the very void it created. The story of Nathaniel and Hermelinda is not only a tale of a terrible crime, but a warning about how people can lose themselves in the whims of a possessive and destructive love. The lives of Zoraida, Alberto, and their young children, who could have been just another family in the neighborhood, were taken away by a whirlwind of lies and jealousy. Hermelinda's intervention in Nathaniel's mind was like a poison, dripping slowly until his thoughts and common sense disappeared completely. It is essential to understand how people can emotionally manipulate others to the point of committing atrocities. Psychological manipulations such as those experienced by Nathaniel are not easy to identify in time, and in this case the results were irreparable. Hermelinda, blinded by jealousy, not only played with Nathaniel's feelings but used an elaborate web of lies to drag him to a point of no return. Through deception, making him believe that his life was in danger due to a supposed threat from a drug cartel. She managed to manipulate him until he saw Zoraida and her family as enemies he had to eliminate to save his own life. This manipulation was so profound that Nathaniel, a seemingly normal man, ended up committing violent acts he would never have considered under normal circumstances. The murder of Zoraida, Alberto, the children, and the dogs is not only a tragedy because of the magnitude of the deaths, but also because of the coldness with which it was executed. The violence in this case was the result of a chain of decisions driven by manipulation and jealousy. But that does not make the crime any less shocking. The execution of an entire family, even including children and animals, is a brutal reminder of how far human evil can go when combined with deceit and a vulnerable mind. While this crime left an irreplaceable void, it also left an important lesson about the fragility of the human mind and the dangers that lurk when emotions and fears are ruthlessly manipulated. This family's tragedy highlights the lethal dangers that lurk in toxic relationships, where jealousy and control distort reality. What seemed like an ordinary life turns into a spiral of suffering, demonstrating how manipulation can irreversibly destroy lives. This story shows how toxic relationships can lead to extreme situations. Love, manipulation, and jealousy combined to trigger one of the most shocking crimes in the city's recent history. The question is not only how Nathaniel came to kill people he knew, but how someone can become so controlling of another human being's mind, pushing him to the limit of violence. The investigation into the 2023 Romeoville murders has concluded, and police records obtained by WGN reveal that the mastermind behind the plot to murder 2 adults, 2 children, and 3 dogs was the shooter's fiancée. According to reports, she spun a web of lies and manipulation with the goal of ending the romantic relationship between her partner and one of the victims. If you think justice has been done, don't forget to like us and turn on the little bell so you don't miss any other case. See you next time.